Welcome back to Grade 7 Math. This is lesson number 10.4. Evaluate arguments based on data. In our previous lesson, we looked at how to find bias in surveys. In today's lesson, we are going to look at various graphs and describe how they are misleading and, in many cases, biased. Take a look at this graph. Why is this graph misleading? I'll give you a few seconds to look at this graph and think about it. Okay, your eyes should go straight to the three pictures being used to represent the amounts. Problem is, we're not using standard bars in this graph. We're using these illustrations. And that's where the problem comes in. Because we look at the amount for 1960, which was around 50, but then we compare it to 2000, where it's at 150. And what throws us off is that this diagram is so much larger than the one for 1960. Yes, the amount of trash has grown 3 times between 1960 and 2000, but look at the size of these diagrams. We would think that the amount of trash has increased many more times than just 3 times. So that's what makes this graph misleading. Take a look at this graph. How could this graph change a person's opinion? Okay, take a few seconds and think about why this is misleading. Okay, well, we're comparing two video game systems, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. And we look at the graphic which was used for a PS3. They've taken a PS3 and put it on its side. So we see that the amount is 49. When I look at the Xbox 360, and even though they've turned it sideways too, the amount is 46. Now, that's only a difference of 3. But again, the difference in the size of the graphics is throwing off our understanding. We would think that the difference between PS3 and Xbox 360 is much greater than it really is. Okay, for all of you fans of American politics, take a look at this graph and consider, is this graph misleading? Okay, the topic is average number of Americans on food stamps during the presidencies of Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. And I think again, it's the size of these bars that is really misleading us. Okay, there is a difference from 24 million to 40 million. Okay, but this graphic here makes us think that there is a much, much greater difference than there is in reality. Take a careful look at this one. Something about the vertical axis is making the graph inaccurate. Take a few seconds and see if you can spot what the problem is. Okay, we've got marks for Jimmy, Jack, Mike, and Ashley. Marks scored by these 4 students in science in the year 2008. Here's the problem. This graph is not starting at 0, so this is a misleading graph. A graph is supposed to start at 0 and work its way up. So only what we're really getting is only partially completed bars that really throw off our understanding of the difference in the results for these marks. So, as you can see from these examples, the way that information is presented on a graph can be very misleading and can influence someone's opinion greatly. When reading graphs, it is very important to look at how the information is presented before we form an opinion on the topic that is displayed on the graph. So, just because a graph appears in a major newspaper or magazine or on a television news program doesn't mean that the information has been presented completely accurately. We need to take a look at graphs with our own eyes and do a careful inspection of those graphs and make sure that they've been set up properly before we go ahead and make any conclusions from what we see in the data. Alright, so in tomorrow's class we're going to make like Sherlock Batman, and we're going to discuss a variety of misleading graphs that we see in our textbooks. But for now, this concludes today's video.